Hands up if you suffer from fatigue, exhaustion, poor memory and concentration, constipation, weight gain, fluid retention, depression, mood swings, hair loss and, heaven forbid, decreased libido. My goodness, that's all of you. You figure it's normal, right? It must be work or the children.
Well, it's nicknamed the Running on Empty Brigade. 1 in 14 Australians suffers from some sort of thyroid problem, which leaves you feeling sluggish and exhausted. Sounds like my life too. Diagnosed with one form of it is mother of two, Robyn Koumourou. The 39-year-old says she spent years on the specialist merry-go-round looking for answers until she was finally diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Good morning, Robyn. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, thank you.
What is it?
Basically, your thyroid gland produces hormones that control our metabolic rate. So if the thyroid gland starts to malfunction and you don't produce enough thyroid hormone, because that's what I based the book on, an underactive thyroid, basically your metabolic rate slows down and every system in your body is affected. Every organ system starts to slow down and malfunction. So you end up developing symptoms all over your body in all different parts, and they're a bit, like you saw up there, a bit non-specific and a bit confusing and can mimic so many other illnesses as well.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, everyone, all of those symptoms that I read out then, who doesn't suffer from all that?
Yeah.
So, if you feel that you're feeling any of those, is it likely that you have hypothyroidism?
Yes, I think if you've got pretty much a cluster of those symptoms and they start to get progressively worse and worse, I think initially you might just think it's old age, or you're just feeling a bit run down, or you've got young kids, and
or you feel like everybody else, so you tend to sort of discard it, don't you?
Yes,
but if you've got nearly all of them.
Yes, and I think the symptoms start to become very far more extreme. The tiredness and exhaustion you feel is almost overwhelming and unrelenting, and all you want to do is sleep all day. And I think when you start those other symptoms of gaining weight when you're not even eating as much, and then your hair's falling out, and then your brain isn't working. It's like brain fog and memory loss, depression, anxiety. But then also your digestive system, you can feel nauseous all the time, headaches, dizziness, it's just everything.
So you had, sorry, so many questions to ask. You had trouble getting it diagnosed, didn't you?
Yes.
Why is that? Does the medical profession not understand it?
I think they do. Often because it can mimic other illnesses, and they might put it down to stress and anxiety or depression, or
Sounds
just
like
allergies.
Chronic fatigue.
Chronic fatigue syndrome.
Well, you ended up with it as well, didn't you?
Well, they diagnosed me with chronic fatigue initially, and also postnatal depression, because I went downhill drastically after my second child, and I could barely function from day to day at all. Could barely even lift my arms up to put the washing on the line. I was that weak. And I think because it can mimic so many other things, they may try antidepressants to see if that's the cause of it. And it wasn't until I brought in an full list of all these symptoms and said, I want you to do every test you can possibly think of that may relate to some of these symptoms. And eventually sort of looking at going, oh, I don't know where to start. But then it came back that I may have a thyroid problem, but it might not be bad enough to treat. And he wasn't going to do anything. So I went away and researched, and came back and said, can you do these other tests? Because sometimes a full thyroid function test is more revealing than just one simple blood test. So you need a few other blood tests as well. And that confirmed that I definitely had an autoimmune condition that was attacking my thyroid gland and destroying it. And so therefore my hormone levels are dropping, and it's a lifelong condition.
Okay, now, are you more susceptible if you know that someone in your family has a thyroid condition?
Yes, it tends to run in families. There's some genetic link there. Very strong in families. My mother had an overactive thyroid gland. I think my grandfather probably had an overactive one as well. It can go either way.
Overactive and underactive, what's the difference in symptoms?
Okay, underactive, everything is slowing down your metabolic rate. So you become lethargic, tired, weak, exhausted. Even brain function slows down, and it affects brain chemistry and can cause quite major depression as well. The overactive, their thyroid gland's going a bit berserk. It's being stimulated and producing too much hormone, so they're very almost highly strung, wound up, nervous, jittery, go, 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 and then crash, go, 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 crash. And they have a lot of problems with heart palpitations, puts a lot of pressure on the heart as it's pumping so fast. They lose weight, they can eat like a horse and not gain weight. But it can affect them mentally as well, very confused.
You mentioned that you felt it particularly after the birth of your child. Is that another cause?
Well, key times where thyroid conditions are triggered is usually where you've got hormonal shifts, such as puberty, postpartum, like after you give birth, the immune system bounces back with aggression, and most thyroid conditions are caused by autoimmune it's an autoimmune disease, so it's self-attacking, you know, healthy tissue, and the thyroid gland gets targeted. The other key time is menopause, and many women will be going through menopause and then also thyroid abnormalities. They're not sure which one's causing what symptoms. So I think over the age of 60, you've got 30% of the population have thyroid disorders over the age of 60.
Wow.
See, that's stunning. What are the particularly for someone who has suffered for a long time, what are the long-term implications of not having it diagnosed correctly?
I think the longer you leave it, the worse the prognosis. Many people go for many years because they may have borderline blood test results. Doctors may not pick it up and they suffer for years and they progressively get worse. But it puts strain on all the body's internal organs. So the heart is struggling to function properly, your digestive system, your brain, and you have symptoms all everywhere. And I mean, thyroid conditions are a major contributor to heart disease, to depression,
Are they really?
Depressive illnesses, even metabolic syndrome with having abnormal blood sugar levels and blood sugar controls. It can throw that out, and that can lead to type 2 diabetes. So it can cause major things. The longer you have it and it's not treated, the more complications and maybe other problems will develop as well. So you want to get in early.
So, all right, so if you think you might, and we were talking about a goiter too, that might be an indication that you might have
swelling and inflammation. It's just an enlargement of the thyroid gland.
Right. If you think you might be suffering from this, what should you do? And if you are diagnosed with hypothyroidism, what happens? What can you? What do they
What's
administer?
the treatment?
Okay. Generally, they're lifelong conditions if they're autoimmune. If you've got an underactive thyroid gland, they give you thyroid hormone replacement. So they do blood tests.
So that's thyroxine?
Thyroxine. And they do blood tests to see how abnormal your levels are, give you thyroid hormone replacement, and then keep an eye on your blood levels. And you might have a blood test every 6 to 12 months just to make sure over the years it's staying stable.
So that's something you take?
And you've got adequate hormones. It's a bit like diabetics taking insulin because they don't produce enough insulin.
Yep.
It's just similar to that. So you're replacing the hormone that's not there. So that's basically the treatment.
But you need to go to your doctor and say you think that you're suffering from this. And is it a simple test?
Sometimes a simple blood test. They normally test for one hormone, which is a TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. At Thyroid Australia, our organisation, we suggest people have a more thorough test where they've got the thyroid hormones themselves, T4 and T3 should be tested.
So that's called a full thyroid
function test. And the other thing that's often overlooked is looking for the disease process, is thyroid antibodies, because it's the antibodies that the immune system produces and white blood cells that infiltrate the thyroid gland and destroy it. So if you come back positive with high antibody levels, you've definitely got the disease process, and it will progressively get worse over years.
Of all those awful symptoms that I read out before, probably the worst is the decreased libido. So if you get these hormone replacements, does the libido come back?
Yes.
Excellent.
It affects all of that.
There you go.
My husband always says, give me more, take more.
No excuse.
How quickly did you notice an improvement? I mean, not just in that area of your life, but I mean overall. How quickly did you start feeling good again?
I was up and down for a few years because usually people start improving over a few months. It's not instant. It's a slow reacting hormone. It builds up in your system. Usually takes a few months to a year to sort of feel really back on top of things. I didn't respond to standard medication, so I need a combination of hormones, and that brought my life back again. Basically everything came back. I started functioning. I could look after my kids again and enjoy life, but before that I couldn't. I was just totally dysfunctional.
All right, and your husband's happy, so that's good news.
He's happy now.
And the book is called Running on Empty. Thank you, Robyn, for your time this morning.
Thank you
so much. All right, news just in. The Reserve Bank has lifted interest rates by 25 basis points to 6.25%. There you go. Saying the hike was required to moderate inflation. There we go, now we've heard it all. More in the morning news. Plenty more on the way this morning, though. Dr. John Irvine drops by to give us all a big hug.
We need one now.
To explain why cuddle is so important. But next, the very cuddly Anthony Telford's in the kitchen.